Welcome to Command Control Power, a weekly podcast hosted by 3 certified members of the Apple Consultants Network, drawing from nearly half a century of combined experience. We talk shop, interview vendors and colleagues, and share what we've learned while operating our technology consulting practices. This is Joe Saponari of SciMac, and my 2 co-hosts are Jerry Zigmont of MacWorks and Sam Valencia of the HCS Technology Group. We also offer a weekly email newsletter which includes show notes for each episode. Learn more at commandcontrolpower.com. And thanks for listening. This episode of Command Control Power is brought to you commercial-free and is made possible by our Patreon sponsors. You can help bring more commercial-free episodes by going to patreon.com/CMDCTRLPWR and supporting the show with a monthly pledge. Thank you for your support of Command Control Power. Thanks very much to our VIP supporters whose generous support earns them a special place at the top of the show. Alan Hancock, WatchmanMonitoring.com/CCP. Taylor Boyko, SimpleMDM.com, and John Brown, GroveTech.co. And special thanks to Jason Detbarn of Adigy.com and Adam Angst of Tidbits Content Network, tcn.tidbits.com. Thank you all very much for your support. I mean, talking about stuff you guys see on site, like Jerry, the story you shared with us just now off the air, we will spare our listeners about, what your client showed them by lifting up their shirt to reveal bag that they had installed, let's just say, to use your words. I was thinking to myself, this is why I don't go on site. I'm fully remote. Nothing like that's ever going to happen to me. But then I thought about something on my list here, which is how invasive FaceTime is on the Mac, right? I'm on the phone with the client. I'm connected remotely, and they get a phone call, and their freaking face pops up on screen because FaceTime app opens and starts immediately displaying video. Huh. Isn't that kind of invasive? I mean, that's his default behavior, I'm pretty sure. Have somebody call you on a phone number, or email address using FaceTime that you have, signed in to receive calls on your Mac. You know what I mean? You can, just like with messages, I think, right? You can say you can be reached at this phone number, this email address. For most people, I think the default is you can be reached for FaceTime on this phone number. And
so you're remoted into the computer. So as soon as that initializes, you're going to get whatever's going on camera.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm sitting there having a conversation with them, and all of a sudden, and I'm working on something on their computer, and all of a sudden I'm seeing them looking at me, or they're not seeing me, they're looking at themselves, and I'm seeing the room they're in. It feels immediately invasive and creepy, and luckily nothing like what you described, Jerry. It wasn't anything like that, but it could have been, it could have been something, strange. And I just felt like that's a really anti-Apple. It's not Apple-like to have FaceTime pop up on a screen. I guess they're not accounting for somebody being remoted in.
That's not too common for someone to be remoted in when you start a FaceTime session.
No, that's true. And also the other thing is similar to that. It's you can't change the FaceTime preferences without opening FaceTime and seeing their video. So sometimes people ask how can I stop FaceTime? You have to open the FaceTime app. So their video is immediately displayed. So if you're remoted in, you just have to warn them.
That's your story? I thought you were going to tell me a juicy story.
No, it's not. It's not you. You told no.
And FaceTime popped up, and I saw a 2-headed lizard or something like that. I don't know.
It was just in case. It was just what it could have been.
All right, Jerry, I got a funny story for you. At least I thought it was funny.
Is this show Tell Jerry a Funny Story?
Yeah, this is Tell Jerry a Funny Story. Get Jerry to laugh. What's that? Was that show that you had to sit in a chair and see if you can make somebody laugh? You guys don't remember that show?
Crickets.
Oh, terrible. All right, here we go. When my wife and I were traveling not too long ago, we were at a hotel, and it was kind of darkish in the room when we had first arrived, and we were plugging in our various devices and things like that. So my wife keeps trying to plug in her iPhone brick into a plug that's in the nightstand. It's just got an outlet there, and she's trying to plug it in. And she puts it in there, and she's like, my phone isn't charging, and all this stuff. And then every once in a while it would fall out. And she's like, I can't get this to charge. I think the outlet's dead. Can you come take a look at it? So I go over there, and it falls out again. And I go over there, and it's actually 2 USB jacks that she's trying to plug her electrical outlet into. And I'm like, oh, great. You're married to an IT technician, and this is what you do. I just thought it was funny as hell.
That's pretty funny.
So, Joe, you had a pretty tough day today, huh?
Oh man. Yeah. Yeah. It was how it started. I mean, I try to do some admin stuff like we were talking about in a recent episode where Sam was venting a little bit about, just always trying to keep up with the admin on top of the consulting time and in his case, teaching and training. For me, it's always the balance between trying to help clients and trying to like get admin stuff done. So like live calls or even unattended remotes, versus like all the other stuff you have to do, not only to run the business, but to like actually just, do notes for tickets and get back to people by email and stuff. So I try to firewall off some time in the morning for that. And I usually do that over a cup of coffee. And I was all set up, at a coffee shop. I sat down and I opened my laptop and I see an email from a client. I'm like diving right in. I start replying back to him. It's 8:15 in the morning or something. Then I see his call coming in to my cell phone. I'm thinking, okay, I'll just take care of it. So I get on the call and I did take care of it. It just basically totally killed the admin time that I had in the morning. It took longer than it should have because, as the kind of client who wants to give you the full story, even though like you kind of already have a sense of how to fix it, you just want to really dive in. At 8 o'clock in the morning, I don't want to like explain what I'm doing even, I just want to be like, what's the problem? Okay, it's solved now. So that was the way my day started. And then it just rolled into like one thing after another. My next call at 9, I'm back at my desk for it. And I'm trying to follow up on something from last week where we reached out to QuickBooks to take care of migration. She's migrating from a Windows PC that stopped working to a brand new Mac. She had a Windows guy kind of like save things in OneDrive and migrate from a backup or whatever. And then I picked it up from there and helped her get set up on the Mac and all. So we're trying to get QuickBooks Online set up, but we have like backup files from Windows QuickBooks. So like you'd think, throw some money into it, get signed up for QuickBooks Online. That's what they want you to do. They should make it easy. So you click on like import from desktop and they have like a helpful video, that tells you like to go back to your like other computer and like use that computer to export to QuickBooks Online. I'm like, what happened to the days of like, I have the file, I have the company file. Can't I just like upload it? No, you have to like go back to the original computer. So we reach out to QuickBooks and say like, isn't there a service where you can do this for us? Like she just pays a flat rate and these 3 files get converted. So they're like, yeah, let me take all your info. So I gave them all my info to like take it from there. No follow-up from QuickBooks for the intervening week. So now I'm back on the phone with QuickBooks today. She's not getting the calls from QuickBooks. They have multiple web pages and multiple splash pages that come up in QuickBooks Online that say like, call this number, we're happy to help, a little picture of a person with the headset on and whatever. And you call those numbers and they're like, we've changed the way we offer support. And they give you a recording and then they hang up on you. And they basically tell you, go back to the help button and then like ask for a callback. So we're back in like waiting for callback hell, So I bypass all that, put in my information. So I do get a call from them. Great. Now I'm back on the phone with QuickBooks support. Level 0 is not ready to help me with this issue whatsoever. I don't know, honestly, like I can't help. I'm like, okay, bye, thank you. I'm like, not going to go that, so I'm already like, it's just like frustration is building. In the interim, as we're waiting for QuickBooks to call us back, before I eventually called them or whatever, got them to call me, she's like, well, my email should be syncing between my Mac and my iPhone. I'm like, that should be easy. Let me see here. So I open up her Outlook on her Mac and there's no new email coming in. And I'm like, this is crazy. Like, we just set this up. I know I reset your password last week, got you all signed in. I know it's done right. I did it myself. Like, why would Outlook just not be receiving emails? So I'm troubleshooting that, testing, sending her test emails. Nothing's coming in. I can send successfully. So I'm like, yeah, it's configured right, but it's just not working. What's going on? This is weird. Wait a minute. Go to Hover status. She's using Hover for her domain registration and also for her email hosting for some reason. Hover status shows email is down. Of all the times I just wasted like 15 minutes because like their email is down right now. It comes back up. We test that. Everything's working fine. So that was like a complete waste of time. So my clock is running. She's accruing charges for like no good reason so far. We're like 45 minutes into the call. No work has been done, at this point. Like, I'm sitting there like, I'm annoyed for her, and I was like, I'm frustrated for myself. Anyway, we get through all of that. I got connected remotely. So the problem with her PC that she stopped working is just that like the keyboard or trackpad or something stopped working. So she's able to get me connected remotely and it's working fine. So I go into QuickBooks and I did the export from there, got that all done. So that was all fine. Then I'm trying to go back to her Mac so I can get her email password to fix the email on the old PC that she wants it to keep now as a backup, just in case the Mac, blah, blah, blah. So I'm like, fine, okay, switch back to the Mac. Added G Live desktop is down. Just insert all the bleeping you want here, Jerry. One of these moments where it's just bad timing. So that was kind of like my first two calls of the day, just leading through all this frustration. Get through the rest of the day, whatever random stupid stuff that comes up. Then I get a client who I call and she doesn't answer. Hear back from her. She's like, I'm so sorry. I'm on the way home. So a scheduled
client.
Scheduled call. Yeah.
Yeah, you're supposed to meet up with her and she's not there.
And it's just like back to back all day, whatever. And then I call her and then she's no answer. So she calls me back. She's like, I'm so sorry. And she's explaining all the different appointments she had and why they ran long and all these things. And I'm like, she's like, we can do this tomorrow. I think we're scheduled for tomorrow. Set up my new computer. I'm like, well, no, tomorrow is to like finish the setup of your new computer. Today, I'd like to get started. So if it still works, she's like, I'll be home in 20 minutes. I'm like, great. That still works for me. No problem. I look at my clock a little while
Don't you
later.
hate that?
No.
Let me just interject where the client will go like, oh, we'll just do it tomorrow. And it's like, no, we can't do it tomorrow.
Yeah.
What are you crazy?
Sure, I'm free.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. I'm not doing anything. Sure.
No, in this case, we had both calls scheduled. We have a call scheduled today to start the migration, and then tomorrow. And I'm like, yeah, we can start it tomorrow. Thankfully, yes, I am available. I'm also annoyed because you just like had my calendar blocked off for no reason today. That's still annoying. I don't want to wait until tomorrow. I want to get this done and over. Like, I just want to, it's like the longer anyway. So it's just frustrating. So I'm like, yeah, fine. All right. Call me in 20 minutes. No call. I eventually call her back. Doesn't answer. Then calls me right back and says, I'm so sorry. I'm just getting home. Like, I don't know. Traffic. Just goes on and on. I'm like, that's fine. That's fine. Okay. Can we just dive in now? Like, you've already exhausted my patience. That was what little was left today, The ticket on my screen is like, set up new laptop, blah, blah, blah. And then there's a note like she's also getting another iMac. She's getting a desktop too. She left the company she's with and she's getting a new laptop and a new desktop for herself. Great. No problem. Let's dive right in. Okay, so let's go. On the computer, I'm going to have you go through the initial setup. You can just turn it on and I'm going to walk her through the setup, right? She's like, well, I'm looking at it. I'm in settings. I'm like, I think you mean system preferences. Let's see. So, because she's like my new laptop, blah, blah, blah. All right, no problem. Like, I think you're in, just close that or just click on Safari. I'm just going to have you go right into Safari. I'm like, you already set up the computer? Like, she's like, yeah, I guess I did. I don't know what I did. I tried to. I'm like, okay, all right. Like, I just like breathe. So go to Safari. I'm in Safari, allows Safari to access Siri and search. Yeah, that's fine. I'm like, just allow. I don't know. Like, I don't know. Is this like a Monterey thing? Like, I don't know. Just allow whatever.
Move it along. Yeah.
Just click whatever you have to click to be able to follow my instructions. Like, I don't care I don't even care if it's like, yeah, give all your data to Google. Fine. I really don't care right now. Just click allow or something. It's not going away. I'm like, all right, like, what is going on right now? I'm like, can you just click on Safari? Like, what happens? Yeah, it's here. I'm seeing Safari. I'm like, okay, so can you put in cymac.com? I'm spelling it out. She's like, there's nowhere to put it. I don't know where I'm supposed to put that. I'm typing, nothing's happening. I'm like, okay. Like, what do you, I was like, what do you, I'm like, yeah, I'm off the rails at this point. I'm just like, I don't know what you're seeing. I'm sorry. Like, I don't know what you're seeing. I'm just like, I can send you a photo of what I'm seeing. I'm like, okay, send me a photo. I'm like, send me a photo of your laptop of what you're seeing, right? So I get the photo from her. Oh, this is an iPad. It's a picture of her iPad on her kitchen counter. This is an iPad. I feel bad almost like saying something like that to a client, like, you're supposed to know this is an iPad, not a laptop, like, I'm so smart and you don't know that. Oh, I just don't know where that got lost in translation. Like, because it's like, it's not a laptop, it's an iPad. And so I'm like, okay, no problem. We can work with this. I'm like, this is easier. I'm not going to migrate anything. I'm just going to get you signed in to what you got to get signed into, Then I'm describing to her in settings at the top, tap your name. She's like, I don't see my name. We just signed you into iCloud. Like, what is going on? So she's like, I'm like, just read me what you see on your screen, read me everything you see now. Cause I'm just like, what are you seeing? Do you see airplane mode? Do you see anything? So she's reading me something like Face ID and passcode and this and that. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. Like, go up. What do you see above that? What do you see above that? So she's reading me in reverse order, all the settings. And then she gets to the top and it's airplane mode and that's it. There's nothing above that. I'm like, you should see your name up there. I'm like really sure of this, you know. She's like, I don't, there's nothing else up there. Are you at the top of the list on the left? Like, can you scroll to the top of the list? She's like, I'm pressing up, up, up. So she's using the keyboard arrow keys to arrow up in settings on the left-hand side. And it doesn't go to iCloud for some reason. So I actually explained to her, I'm like, this is a touchscreen. She's like, oh, it's a touchscreen. So she didn't know that she had an iPad that had a touchscreen.
She thought she had a MacBook, which doesn't have a touchscreen. So that makes sense.
I guess it makes sense. Like, I don't know what she was thinking, but I just, at the end of that call, I was like, we got you signed into some stuff. I got to go. You know, it's like, I'm out.
My God.
I was so faded at the end of that. And I did not expect the photo of the iPad. And then sure enough, I'm referring back to a call that I had with her, which was she wanted an iPad to take notes when she's visiting with clients and things like that. It was her idea. She wanted an iPad where she could get a pencil and write on screen and all this stuff. So she went in and sure enough, she got it. But as she's describing it to me, she's like, you know, she's telling me it's a laptop and this and that. And I'm like, in my head, it's a laptop because she also is buying an iMac. So she was very confusing. She's like, I'm going back to get the desktop, but I got the laptop. Oh, God.
She was confused of what she had, but at the same time, per your notes, she was supposed to have an iPad. It was just this whole time you're thinking she's on a portable. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, at the beginning of the call, we clarified. I said, just to be clear, you have a current desktop that's, you know, outdated that you're migrating to a desktop when that comes in. And for today, you have the new laptop from Apple and we're migrating you from your desktop to that laptop. So like you could have something up and running before you get the desktop. And the whole time we're talking laptop. I guess I could have gone back to my email. But so this, Jerry, this goes back to your thing about following up with people, because this was like from, you know, a month ago or something where we had this conversation when I worked with her in the past where she was asking for advice and we talked about iPads, talked about desktops. I sent her an email recapping what I recommended. And so now that she calls, I hadn't followed up on that recommendation. I hadn't made a ticket with all my detailed notes in it because I'm thinking, you know, I don't know if this is going to go anywhere. Like, I don't know if she's going to call me back. I'm not going to make a ticket and follow up with her and all this stuff because it was a judgment call. And, you know, sure enough, she followed through on my recommendation, came back with the wrong language. And, you know, it's kind of like half my fault that I didn't have the full like context loaded, because I could have said to her from the beginning, oh, you're saying laptop, but you must mean, did you buy the iPad that we talked about? Like that would have clarified it from the beginning. You know,
sure.
I didn't have the bandwidth today to like think about it or look it up or whatever.
Clients will ghost you where you'll put a proposal together or you'll tell them to go out and order something and you say, okay, you know, like when you order it, you're going to get an estimated delivery date. Circle back with me and we can get that on the schedule and we'll help you onboard it when that arrives. I never get replies back. I'll be darned if I'm going to reach out to them and go like, hey, we talked about a week ago about you ordering this. Like, did you order it? Where's my delivery date? Like, what about all the stuff we talked about? How come you haven't reached out to me per my free time where I advised you which Mac to buy? I get so burned by that.
Yeah, it pisses me off to hell, man. I have gotten that. Joe, I assume Joe has as well, but yeah. Especially since then all of a sudden you'll get the email like, oh, it just arrived today.
But it's here.
Set it up?
Right. Oh, and I'm going away tomorrow. You know, I'm going to be good plan. Yeah.
After 6 works best for me.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah. I mean, it doesn't annoy me so much that, you know, it's fine. Like I can follow up a few times if it is a ticket and I can set it as pending and, you know, with a due date in the future, like I don't even have to see it until it pops back up on its own. And that's great. And I don't mind doing that a couple times. This works better than anything. Just replying to the client like, okay, like we haven't heard back from you after a few tries. No problem. We're going to close this ticket on our side. We're going to close this request. You know, you can always feel free to reach out. They're like, no, don't go away. Like, I really am interested. That's to me, like the most effective way of getting a response is just to say like, I'm not going to try anymore, you know? And it just can be neutral though. Like I don't really take it to heart unless it's something where I have spent a lot of time on something or where I feel like I think it's going to happen and I'm willing to put in a little extra effort and then it just gets delayed indefinitely. That does get a little frustrating. Come to the territory. In this case, it was like, you know, you can't make a ticket for every time you like have some conversation with somebody about maybe upgrading something, you know?
Work has been a little bit light for me, contrary to my companions here who are always busy. One of the things that I wanted to share was, do you have clients that buy prepaid hours? And do you often feel like when you have to go and burn those hours down by providing support that somehow it's almost like you're doing free work, even though you've gotten prepaid in advance? Well, I had one of those. So I had to just show up on site to this client and do a consultation with their AV person. They redid their home, completely gutted a major section of their home, and he re-outfitted everything with the, I guess they're called Connect 4 control panels.
Control 4.
Control 4. All high-end stuff. And they had reached out to me, the AV guy and the client, who I have provided Mac support with for years. And so when he did all the revamping of their sound in the house, he actually put in a Wi-Fi system for them. So whatever, he had the work. About a month ago, he says that our client, our shared client, wants to get music on a network attached storage and wants to be able to see it in iTunes. I said, well, you can do that. I said, as long as the network attached storage has this component called iTunes Server, you could load stuff on there. And then he could open up iTunes and then connect to the iTunes server and see it, and it could play the content from the attached NAS on the network. And he said, well, yeah, but the problem is now that the client, when they buy an album or a track from iTunes, it doesn't show up on the NAS. That's the way it works. It's one way. It's read only. So the only way you can get that track onto the NAS is you have to mount the NAS using AFP or SMB, if it will work with AFP. Some of them do, like the Synology, but this one I think was only SMB compatible. So you have to mount the NAS, and I told the guy this over the phone, and then you'd have to manually drag the track onto the NAS. And then the next time iTunes connected, or if you connected with your Control 4 to the NAS, you'd be able to see that track on there. I don't know whether this didn't sink in, but now they contact me a month later and they're like, we need you to come up here and sit down with, we'll say this guy's name is Jim, and solve things once and for all. And I'm like, okay. And I said, by the way, not to throw this guy under the bus, but I wish we had a talk before you had him put in the system, because I don't install sound systems, but I have a lot of experience, with Sonos and streaming music using Synology, and I, use Tidal, and I use a streaming service from Europe, and I'm familiar with AV and sound, at least from the musical standpoint. So I sit down with a guy, and he's a lovely guy. And I literally had to consult with him for about 2 hours. And I said, look, this is the only way you can do this. And he had brought a Western Digital NAS with him, which, I told him, these are okay, but these aren't good. If you want to recommend NASs to people, you should have them use a Synology. I brought one just in case we were having trouble with your NAS and it didn't work. He said, well, what about this Western Digital? Can I add tracks to it? And I'm like, yeah, you can, but you'd have to mount the drive, just like I showed you with the one you have installed right now. They all put on their pants the same way. And he says, yeah, but well, what happens if he wants to add more music? I said, well, I wouldn't recommend this to them. I mean, they're
Right.
a retired couple.
Right.
right. No disrespect to you. It's great to have things on a network attached storage device, but unless somebody in the household has the chops and the real desire to, let's say, keep on loading up that NAS with new music, you got to.
It's not. I mean, why would anyone want that anyway? Why is that good? I don't even know why that's good. It's just like a hobby. If you like to move files around,
Right. In your free time, load up the NAS with new tracks. He says, well, is there anything else we can do here? I said, well, does Apple Music work with Control 4? Did I get that right? Connect 4? I'm thinking of the kid. What's the
Connect 4
kid's
is a game that I play with my niece who cheats at it, and I was playing this Connect 4 with my niece, and she was sneaking extra checkers or whatever they are in there, know. And I was like, okay, so you want to go 2 for 2 and then 3 for, so she's she plays 2 and I play 2, and we play that version of the game, and then it's okay, that's different. We play 3, and it's well, the first person to go wins every time. So you like to cheat, but is that any fun actually? So we had a little lesson on Connect 4, Control 4.
Control 4. Yeah, I play that with my daughter, Connect 4, and she always wins. I think the whole thing is rigged.
Right. She's probably cheating like my niece was.
And I said, well, does Control 4 work with Apple Music? Because if he signs up with Apple Music, it doesn't matter whether these tracks are on the NAS or not. He could just, the world is his oyster. He could stream whatever he wants. It's one push button away. And he said, no. Control 4 doesn't have a icon that you can press on their control pad for Apple Music, but they do have one for Spotify. There's your answer. Just have them stream tracks. Don't have him worry about iTunes or anything else. He goes to Control 4. He presses the Spotify button. It's just one push of the button. He could sign up for the high resolution version of Spotify. And he says, well, what if he wants to download the music? I said, well, you don't understand. I must have explained this to this like 6 or 7 times. I said, it doesn't matter to most people. They don't care whether they're playing the latest Britney Spears album or something like that from their NAS or from Spotify. It doesn't matter. He says, well, what if he wants to save it? I said, for what reason? Why would he want to save it? I said, you could pick up his iPhone. You could pick up his iPad. You could pick up his Mac. There's a Spotify app. You can go to the Control 4. You press the Spotify. It's all the same. It'll play from anywhere. He couldn't get it out of his head that somehow these tracks needed to be local. He says, well, what do I do with his iTunes collection? I said, well, chances are 99% of what he's looking for in his iTunes collection is on Spotify. Obviously, if he had a recording of his high school band, that's not going to be on Spotify. But you could put that on the NAS, and he could play that track from the NAS if he wants to, right? It was really hard for me to like just talk to this guy, and I'm no young guy, but he just couldn't get. I said, look, I'm the last person who would say that streaming was a good thing, but streaming, it's a good thing.
Right.
It's all you need. It's all these people need. This is all they need. And it took me, they paid for it, but it took me 2 hours.
Jeez.
And so as I'm walking out the door, one final thing, I could hear him talking to the client and, oh, well, did you solve it with Jerry? And he says, well, we didn't solve it because Apple, blah, blah, blah. And I'm thinking to myself, here goes. And he says, so you're not going to be able to save your music. And I told this guy, when the client wasn't around, I said, you don't tell him any of that because none of that matters. Right. I'm not telling you to be disingenuous. I'm not telling you to lie to the client. It doesn't matter. They can stream high resolution music with one button on your Control 4. That's all you need to do.
Exactly. I'm so glad you arrived at that conclusion because that would have been my advice as well. Like, what are you trying to do? Okay, you want to have music in every room and you want to make it easy, right? Great. This is what you do. Unless you want to like pay hundreds of dollars for the hardware, pay hundreds of dollars in consulting fees to 2 different consultants, sit down for training, sign up for local, like, learning, ed classes at your local like library to learn how to file management on a NAS or something. I mean, like, why, like, what are you doing? What are you want to press play, right? And have it work. Great. If you push on that a little bit, maybe they're like, oh, I want to have it downloaded in case internet is down, the grid is down, zombie apocalypse, and I want to have my music here in my house. I want to know that it's here.
Right.
We've had this on past shows. You've talked about this with your home automation stuff, Jerry. Like, if the internet is down, all bets are off anyway. First of all, it could be a hardware component that fails on your network. That's way more likely than like grid down scenario. Whatever it is you're trying to do that gives you comfort that your tracks are downloaded. Like, you can't get to your tracks if like your switch goes down or your router goes down or whatever. Let alone, a lot of these systems are internet-based anyway. There's no local anything. Even if it's pulling tracks off the NAS, it's probably not going to work offline anyway from the control side of things.
Right.
As far as like opening iTunes, good luck if you can't reach Apple's server. It's probably going to like be piling up login windows like to sign into iTunes.
Exactly. The pop-up. You won't be able to play any music because you're going to be hitting cancel too often.
Right. Exactly. Like, so what are you trying to do? Sometimes you got to sit somebody down. You're retired now. How many years do you have left to like listen to music in your home? Let's optimize this experience for you as much as possible. Like, if you want to speak candidly to somebody, I mean, really, you're going to take this on? You're going to manage this NAS in your house? Like, what are you doing?
He was misinformed and they were misguided. I don't think the Control 4 system is a bad system. It's nice for high-end homes. I told him if we had to do it all over, there's no other solution I could suggest to him Because, even if you got Sonos, it's the same thing. You just need to sign up for streaming services and it's one touch of the button.
Right.
Ridiculous. And not to mention, if the grid is down, that light is going to be on in Sam's attic, right, Sam?
Right. There's no way to control it. You got to go to the circuit breaker. You got to just, power down the whole house if you want to. It's a hobby. If you enjoy tinkering with stuff and like rebooting equipment and whatever, enjoy. I just don't know. I mean, maybe I'm still cynical from just like seeing some of these systems. And of course, we see the problems. Clients don't call when everything's working fine. But I don't know, maybe Control 4 is better, but I feel like a lot of these systems, you need to have a relationship with the person who supports it. I mean, who wants that? Even Apple stuff. I have the simplest possible solution you could have, which is an Apple TV plugged into a dumb screen, not a smart TV of any sort, just a screen, Apple TV, HomePod Mini for sound. It all works. It's pretty reliable. I like it. It has a remote, it's great. It all works pretty well. The other day, I'm like down the hall in the kitchen. Ashley's where we have the TV stuff set up, where the HomePod is. I hear Siri having this conversation, just talking. And I'm like, what is going on down the hall, right? I go back to where Ashley's sitting and she has her laptop out and there's like a YouTube video playing, that she's watching, that there's people talking in this video. And Siri is having a conversation from the HomePod to Ashley's computer. And, and Ashley's like, why is there something even listening to like try to talk to something? And, why is there a device over here that's like listening all the time? I've even had problems with my Apple TV setup where I just get the spinner for a while. My internet's fast. Like this is not a problem with the connection speed here. Like nothing's
Is it a Gen
buffering.
1?
Is it no, it's a brand new Apple TV, 4K, Apple TV 4K, like HomePod Mini, everything's like up to date now. I had to update the HomePod and the Apple TV in order to use the HomePod Mini as the actual sound system, like paired with the Apple TV, but that actually works really well. And it generally works, but there's times where it just like spins and spins and I've got to like rebooting stuff or the sound isn't playing and I've just got to, go pause it and resume it and then it plays. It's just weird stuff like that. And the last thing I want is a more complicated system, especially something that's going to like be dependent on a NAS that I have to like update, and just keep active in my network and stuff.
Going back to Jerry's story, I had a nightmare that I'm probably told years ago, but I had a nightmare job with a Control 4 installation, Jerry, that just went completely sideways. And I don't find it to be, in terms of ease of use, I'm not a fan. Like you guys are saying, like it has to be almost more than a hobby. Like you got to have this dude on speed dial and you got to know what the hell you're doing if you just want to watch a movie or listen to music. It's ridiculous.
Another case in point. And by the way, I love technology. I love different technologies. We got, a little bit of Alexa happening in the house. We got a Sonos system working with the TV. I use a Synology to stream music. I've got Plex, which I feed through the Apple TV and then through an Amazon Fire Stick. Miraculously, all this stuff does work, and there are troubles with it. And with camera systems, I've got the UniFi system and I've got some Synology cameras. So, I mean, I love messing around with this stuff, but sometimes it does need care and feeding. So I'm not anti-technology and just wanting people to simplify. Like the Control 4, I can never afford that for my home, nor would I probably want that system because doesn't appeal to me, having like a touch panel and that sort of thing. I want to be a little bit more mobile than that, than having to go over to a control panel to start my music. I want to be able to do that wherever I am in the house. I don't want to be, hardwired to a wall in the house or several walls. To bring up another job for Joe's client, we were working out some Wi-Fi stuff. We thought we had the Wi-Fi issue resolved, so I was winding up the job and I said, just for good measure, kick on your TV because the TV connected to, I think, the Apple TV. And I just wanted to make sure the Apple TV was receiving signal and be able to stream content. And so he presses the wrong button. He's got multiple controls and he had an old system and a new system. And all of a sudden, he can't get his TV to come on and to play anything. We tried to reach the AV guy over the phone and were semi-successful with that. And it ended up being that the AV guy had to schedule a visit to get his TV to play again.
Yeah.
Only because the client picked up the wrong control and pressed the wrong button. I don't think he was expecting me to make it work, but he's looking at me and I'm like, I don't know. There's multiple controls here. I don't know what's going on with any of this dead-end receiver that you have, this AV receiver. I could probably figure it out, but it might be a week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And tracing wires. And then, you get into the rat's nest of like what's connected to what in some of those systems. And you go to like pull out a component so you could see behind it, and then like the little IR sensor like rips off or something. And you're
Right,
like, this is,
exactly.
this is just a minefield back here. Like you got to call whoever put this in, that guy's 80 now, it's like, I don't know. It's a mess. Those systems. I'm glad. I sometimes think to myself, we get these requests like for AV stuff. Like, do you have an AV guy or gal? And it's like, no, because every time I have an AV person, they disappear after a while, or they do high end stuff. They do jobs that are like on orders of magnitude more expensive than the kind of stuff we do, and they don't want to come in and like fix somebody's TV or even like replace one failed component. They want to come in and spec like an entire new system for the whole house.
Yeah, they're not going to support some system that they didn't install. They want to sell you a whole brand new system.
Right, and the guy that installed it made so much money. He's retired now, so you can't like you can't get any satisfaction. And they these new people don't want to come in and like say, oh yeah, I'll just replace this component for the same reason we don't want to touch it, because it's a rat's nest of wiring and a minefield. And so yeah, that's and the clients look to you like, well, you're the smart tech guy, like you're supposed to be able to turn on my TV, haha, and it's like, yeah, but I mean, it's complicated for everybody, and that's why I kind of like avoid any of these like, oh, I just have one remote for everything, it's magic, except behind the scenes, like something gets out of whack where like some stray IR signal hits the wrong component. It's like a friggin' X-ray from space or something. And like the whole thing just, like suddenly one thing is turning on when it should be turning off, and everything else is turning off when it should be turning on, and you're just like, just move. Can you move? Like, are you looking for a new place to live? Because I don't know how I'm going to fix this,
Instead of fixing the AV system, just move.
Just move. Yeah. Have you decided to like start over with a new house? Because we could really build a great system for you around an empty shell. Yeah, the AV thing in that case was he has an older house. We upgraded from airports, which the previous AV tech had installed a while back, to a UniFi system. And we've talked about this system before, actually. The UDM router is in the shoe closet upstairs, and then everything else is wireless. We have 2 beacons and extending the network wirelessly, and those work fine. And then this AV cabinet is basically like where the the Sonos and the TV stuff is and whatever. And so it needed, like some of that stuff needed a wired connection. So previously it was the Airport Extreme and, had a port, or I think it was actually an Airport Express with one extra little port there to provide for some of this equipment. And now it's a UniFi HD access point. So it has a port that you can plug in when the UniFi access point is getting the signal wirelessly through like wireless mesh. The port that, normally it gets an uplink from becomes like a downlink port, just like the Airport Express. Same kind of mode. It's like a wireless bridge. Great. So you plug the Sonos into that. The trouble is, in my experience, I've seen cases, even with the airport setup that I mentioned, like a similar setup to that, sometimes the Sonos box thinks it's going to be a router. I don't really know why, but like it seems like it's basically handing out DHCP addresses. So it's acting as a router. And so I think the UniFi access point sees that it has an uplink on the wired port, and that overrides the mesh, the wireless mesh. And so it actually takes the thing offline because it's no longer getting an uplink from the wireless network like it's supposed to. It's getting what it thinks is an uplink from like the Sonos on the wrong subnet, and then like both the Sonos and the access point are offline. But the access point is still giving out Wi-Fi. So if you're like in that room and you're connected to Wi-Fi, you're now like offline. You're connected to Wi-Fi, but it's like bridge to nowhere. It's a weird thing I've specifically seen with Sonos. So I don't know if anybody else has seen this. I don't know if it's because the Sonos is failing or it's just when the Sonos reboots in the wrong sequence, like it boots up before the access point or something. So I'd be curious if anybody else has seen this. I'm pretty sure I'm not making this up. I've seen this for like years, and it might just be a certain model of Sonos. Maybe he needs to replace it, but yeah, it's been annoying.
That's always the funny end to the story. Is like, I'm pretty sure I'm not making this up.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Now, I've seen some oddities with Sonos in my time. I fully admit, I think I don't work on it enough to quite know all the nuances of how it works. So I've gotten myself into trouble with Sonos too, Joe. I think I've seen what you're describing. It's been a couple of years since I did a bigger or big-ish Sonos job, but I think I know what you're describing.
Right. And this was like working fine for a year, no problems. Didn't hear a peep practically. The other story was like he was having bad internet signal in his living room or something. So he called the local ISP and had them come out and replace the modem, which they replaced with the new kind of modem that's also a modem router combo cable box thing that also gives out Wi-Fi. So the end result of that visit was like now nothing is working because half of his stuff is connected to the
Oh my
the new
God.
Wi-Fi that they installed, and and so like can't print from there, can't like control Sonos, so like it basically he made his own problem way worse, and then called us, and then we sorted that out, got it working, but then this new Sonos like issue started to occur. So I don't know if this was the original issue that he tried getting their help with. It's kind of a little bit of a mess, but I followed up with them. We'll see if it's still happening. And because Jerry, you already reset the access point to factory defaults and reconfigured it, readopted it. So it's like, it's not a configuration issue. That's why I think it's the Sonos.
The ISP doing their job of like mysteriously making things way worse than when they started is just so much more common. I mean, I've seen it more and more lately where they just like throw in a new all-in-one and just walk away type of thing, which I talked about on a recent show. But I was talking with a potential new client the other day, and their wireless wasn't great. They're in an office in New York City, and the usual deal. They have like the basic Verizon modem slash wireless router. And actually, they did give them some mesh access points, but they're still not working well. Let's take a look around. We're remote. You bring your laptop around. And she's like, here's the modem for our computers. And then here's the modem for like our printers and stuff. And I'm like, wait, what? She's like, yeah, well, we weren't getting good signals. So Verizon came back and they put in another modem and connected some of our stuff over there. And I'm like, so you're paying two different bills now? She's like, yeah, and it's still not good. I'm like, well, yeah. It's like, I don't even know how the devices are talking to each other at this point. And that's the way they left it.
Wow. Yeah,
That's
what a mess.
mind-boggling.
Well, I was looking at a proposal from a different company recently, and they spec'd out as part of the network upgrade, they spec'd out a modem, DOCSIS 3.1, whatever modem. I thought to myself, why are we not speccing modems? Our local ISP doesn't have that option anymore. They used to be great because one of the reasons was, because they just like gave you a generic modem and you just plug in your own router, or they give you a crappy router, that you just replace. But it was two separate components. Now with these new boxes, which are really problematic, and we don't have the same level of control. You're stuck with their router. You're either in a double NAT or you've got to like put something in bridge mode, whatever. I'd much rather just have a modem. Why wouldn't they just support bringing your own modem? And in the past, we haven't done that because our kind of calculus on that is that if you bring your own modem, well, of course the cable company's going to point fingers anytime anything's down. It's like, well, it's your modem, not our problem. The answer to that is, yeah, but it's not going to go down because like it's a piece of hardware that actually is good quality and just works. If there is a problem with the signal, like, and they come out and test that, and it's a problem on the provider side, well, they've got to fix it. And if they come out and they test it and they say it's the modem, okay, like on the one-off chance that happens, 1 in 100 times or something, then fine. The client's going to have to buy a new modem or something. Great. You get better outcome from bringing your own modem. I'm going to start recommending that, I think.
So quoting the jobs with a third-party modem. Yeah, that's not a bad idea, actually.
Yeah, who's your ISP? Let me see a picture of your stuff. If it's this new crap, or it's like an old modem even, because they're not going to replace it with a new modem. We'll replace it with a new modem.
I guess the only downside I can see from something like that is like I've had times when we're like, well, all the internal equipment's working fine. It's the modem, call Cablevision or call Optimum. And I don't know if maybe sometimes that can get thrown back in our face now if we try and do that,
Yeah, I mean, I wonder if they can still get a signal. Like, can they still tell that your modem is online from their perspective? I mean, clearly they should be able to. Yeah. So if they call them and they say, yeah, it's offline, then yeah, you got to like roll a truck, right? But I mean, if half the time when they call Optimum, it's like, oh, they didn't pay their bill last month because their credit card changed or whatever, Command Control Power is a labor of love sustained by the generous support of our community. Since 2013, we've produced over 400 weekly episodes. This episode is brought to you for free thanks to the support of our community on Patreon. To join them in making a monthly pledge, please visit commandcontrolpower.com and click on support. Ryan Gowdy, corecompetent.com. Cirrus Partners, gocirrus.com. Weldon Dodd, rewindtech.com. Envision Design, envisiondesign.net. Adam Rice, askadam.io. Tim Nyberg, themacguys.com.
Mac Admins Podcast, podcast.macadmins.org. Michael Thompson, Origin84.com. Jerome Potters,
PIT Pro.
Matthew Waples, Waples.net. Andy Espo, CallAndy.com. Tom Poles, BoxIT.tech. Nate Sinal, WeAreScout.com. And Steve Sorbo, MacSOS.biz. Thank you all for listening and for your support of Command Control Power.
Jerry does his voices of customers of all kinds.
Am I on the cloud?
Joe spins his deeply detailed yarn.